Does age impact adult learners? There are two main barriers to adult learning: external, situational, and internal, dispositional. Merriam and Caffarella define external barriers as influences more or less external to the individual, or at least beyond the individual's control. External barriers would include the effect of aging. This could include loss of vision and hearing, changes in health, and certain life events, which could influence an adult's ability to learn. Chronic illness that leads to pain or fatigue can impact adults. Role characteristics, perhaps marrying or having children, becoming a widow, the loss of a parent, can lead to changes in the self. Motivation factors can also create a barrier, as we will see in Chapter 8 of our textbook. Barriers are those which reflect personal attitudes such as thinking one is too old to learn. Some examples might include a narrow mindset manifested in a failure to explore several perspectives, trying to fit new learning into old categories, meaning depending on remembered facts or learned skills to make sense of new learning, not seeing the big picture, remaining focused on only one thing at a time. The fear of failure also becomes an internal barrier. Here's a fun activity I thought we could do. You can either type in the link to your browser, or you can type into your browser, "Can you tell which way the bus is traveling today?" show, and it should pop up. I'm also going to put the link on Moodle, and it will also be below my YouTube video on the YouTube channel. Make sure that you pause the video at 20 seconds, otherwise they'll give the answer away. Why do you think it is that 80% of children get the answer immediately, yet adults struggle? Perhaps because children are around school buses more often than adults? What do you think? Crystallized intelligence refers to skills, ability, and knowledge that is well versed for the individual. Examples would include vocabulary and general knowledge. These abilities remain stable or generally improve per year through the 6th and 7th decade of life. Life experience aids in the formation of crystallized intelligence, therefore older adults tend to perform better than younger adults. Whilst fluid intelligence refers to abilities involving problem solving and reasoning about things that are less familiar and are independent of what one has learned. This would include a person's innate ability to process and learn new information, solve problems, and attend to and manipulate one's environment. Examples would be executive function, processing speed, memory, and psychomotor ability. Psychomotor ability and processing speed seem to peak in the 3rd decade of life and then decline. The challenge of trajectories aimed at measuring age-related learning is that individuals vary. Your environment, exposure to pollutants, health, and sleeping habits can all influence your learning capacity. It is important that age-related trajectories are measured using regular aging, meaning dementia, Alzheimer's, etc., have not taken place. The difference between normal and abnormal aging is decided by the presence of a neurodegenerative disease. Diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia usually have a late onset, occurring after age 60. If early onset occurs, symptoms can appear in a person's 30s. There are a variety of illnesses that can affect one's ability to learn, but as we age, we become more susceptible to a wider range of diseases. Changes that occur with age can include reasoning and knowledge, motivation for learning, learning activities and environments, and cognitive abilities. Bauer and Associates state both reasoning capacity and knowledge accumulation increase up to early adulthood, after which their paths begin to diverge. At that point, reasoning ability begins to decline, while learners retain or increase their base of knowledge as they age. The accumulated knowledge helps learners compensate for the declines in reasoning capacity that come with age. A study by Ackerman and Beal found that base knowledge was predictive of new information retention, particularly for participants who could learn at their own pace, which minimized cognitive load. In general, older people are likely to know more than younger people do, and their knowledge facilitates their learning. Therefore, as people age, they develop a higher expertise in areas associated with their work and other aspects of their life, relying less on reasoning abilities. This can be challenging when adult learners try to learn something they have no expertise about. Motivation and learning. This is seen in Chapter 8 of our textbook. What people value, their sources of motivation, are likely to change as people age. This change will affect the goals they pursue and activities they participate in. This will influence their expertise, remembering from the past slide. Motivation for learning also changes in the way that people's motivation to achieve and to be recognized for that achievement, whether at work or in other environments, tends to decline with age, while their motivation to use their vast repertoire of skills, help others, and preserve their sense of competence tends to increase with age. Learning activities and environments. As we have learned in class, activities can include formal, such as university class, non-formal, such as a cooking class, or informal, which is learning acquired in everyday life. Cognitive abilities can vary greatly. As stated in How People Learn by Bauer and Associates, some types of memory, such as recalling specific memories, shows a decline with age, whilst others show preservation with normal aging. Grossman states older adults also show an increase in skill in solving social dilemmas. This may be explained by older adults being able to focus on the bigger picture or evaluate the negative consequences of a social decision. This can be described as possessing greater wisdom. To fully understand the cognitive changes adults experience and how it relates to learning, I will touch on 6 different domains of cognitive abilities and how each one declines or remains unchanged. Memory is an area often riddled with complaints among older adults. Age-related memory changes may be related to slowed process speed, reduced ability to ignore irrelevant information, and decreased use of strategies to improve learning and memory. There are 2 major types of memory: explicit, which can also be called declarative, and implicit, which can be called non-declarative. Explicit memory includes semantic memory and episodic memory. Semantic memory involves information, language usage, and practice knowledge. An example would be knowing the meaning of words. Episodic memory is memory for personally experienced events. Episodic memory shows lifelong decline, while semantic memory shows late life decline. Implicit memory is outside of the person's awareness. An example would be remembering how to sing happy birthday. Remembering how to ride a bike would be procedural memory. This type of memory remains unchanged across the lifespan. Attention, as in referring to a person's ability to focus on a specific stimuli. As stated in Normal Cognitive Aging by Harada and Associates, simple auditory attention span, known as immediate memory, only shows a slight decline in later life, whilst complex attention tasks, such as selective and divided attention, declines. Processing speed is the speed of cognitive activities and motor responses. This ability begins to decline in the 3rd decade of life and will continue to decline throughout the lifespan. This decline in processing speed can affect other cognitive abilities. Language seems to remain intact with aging. Assuming that normal aging takes place, as your life experience increases, so will your vocabulary. Here's another fun link to a vocabulary test. Don't feel bad if you don't get them all, just feel good knowing you'll most likely get them one day. As with all the links, you have to type it into your browser or type in Merriam-Webster vocabulary test. I have also put the link below the YouTube video. Executive function disorder, EFD, is actually very common in people with ADHD. The same problems experienced can start to manifest in our aging brains. Executive functions cover a wide range of cognitive abilities, such as the ability to self-monitor, plan, organize, reason, be mentally flexible, and problem solve. These are skills critical to managing everyday life and long-term goals. As stated by Janine Roden in What Does Executive Function Disorder Look Like in Adults? Common signs of EFD in adults include forgetting to complete tasks, inability to keep track of personal items, trouble following conversation, losing train of thought, along with others. Visual construction would include the ability to put together individual parts to make one coherent whole. This ability declines with age. However, the ability to recognize familiar objects in relation to other objects does not decline. This is called visual spatial abilities. If you'd like to see an example of a visual spatial test, one can be found at this link. Like before, you will have to type the link into your browser or alternatively type into your browser Psychology Today Visual Spatial Test. I will put the link in the description on my Moodle Handin as well as below my YouTube video if you choose to watch it directly on the YouTube site. You have to pay for the results, but it's just to give you an idea of what this type of memory test would look like. Here are some activities linked to better brain health. Harada and Associates have listed activities including intellectually engaging activities, physical activities, and social engagement activities. As stated by Galbraith, a positive classroom experience can be created by involving learners in mutual planning of methods and curricular directions, involving participants in diagnosing their own learning needs, encouraging learners to formulate their own learning objectives, encouraging learners to identify resources and to devise strategies for using such resources to accomplish their objectives, helping learners to carry out their learning plans, and involving learners in evaluating their learning needs. Thank you for watching. I hope that you learned a little bit more about how adults learn differently.